Good afternoon, students. Welcome to contact classes based on August examination 2017. I'm Josephine Shangula, your tutor for learning support in mathematics in the program for Diploma in Pre-Primary Education. Instructions to candidates. I would like you to pay attention to the following main points. Answer all the questions for 100 marks on the question paper. Your exam script will be out of 100 marks. Please do answer all the questions. Use the mark allocation for each question as guide for how many facts needed. If your mark allocation for a certain question is 5, do not give 2 facts and expect to score 5 marks. Let the mark allocation be your guide as to how many facts you need to answer or to state. Observe the thinking level of the verb. It's very important to know all the verbs. Study for the verbs as well. Apart from the subject content, know all the verbs in your guide. Number your work correctly. Neat and tidy work is required. Verbs used in the examination. I have highlighted a few verbs just for you discuss. Mean to write about something in detail. Taking into account different issues or ideas. When you are discussing something, you go in depth. You explain in more detail. You discuss something in more detail. Whatever issues or ideas you have about a certain concept, please say it in detail. Do not list a point or a fact when you are asked to discuss that fact. Describe, to report details about something. When you are describing something, you are giving a report but in detail. Explain, you make clear to someone by describing it in more detail by revealing all the facts. Differentiate, to show or find the difference between things that are compared or comparable. You differentiate between 2 items or more. And then you find the differences between. That's what you differentiate. That's when you are asked to differentiate. Make sure your differences must be between 2 or more things. And then clarify. When you are clarifying something, you are making something more clear or easier for someone to understand. So per se. You give clarity on an aspect. Distinguish, to notice a difference between things and then you mention it. So you study something, then you take note of difference between those things, then you mention them. It means you are distinguishing something. Then evaluate is to form an opinion of the amount, value, or quality of something after thinking about it carefully. Before you evaluate, you study something, then you form an opinion. Anything of the amount or value or quality that you are asked to evaluate. Think about it carefully. Then you make your evaluation based on that. Let's move on. In this module, we have 7 outcomes. And these are the 7 learning outcomes. Unit 1, the approaches which support special needs learning. Unit 2, the general learning support in lessons. Unit 3, learning support for fundamental concepts and skills. Unit 4, learning support for application of concepts and skills. Unit 5, learning support for concepts and operations. Take note. Unit 6, issues of the mathematics environment. And 7, issues of assessment in mathematics. We are going to look at each learning outcome separately, and then I would like you to take note of the learning activities I'm going to highlight from each learning outcome. Under Unit 1, we have 3 learning activities: the learning cycle, approaches to teaching and learning, mathematical learning difficulties. Let's look at the learning cycle. Under learning cycle, we have 4 repeating processes. If you remember very well in your guide, these 4 processes of the learning cycle are the awareness, exploration, inquiry, and utilization. Please, students, know what each means by defining it, describing it, or simply be able to know how the whole cycle rotates, how to draw the learning cycle of these 4 processes. Awareness. What is awareness? Is the first stage of this learning cycle. It says a child perceives and recognizes something of interest in the surrounding environment. And then this recognition, perceived by this learner, is developed from the experience, from that environment. Exploration. When they construct their personal meaning through sensory experiences in the awareness stage, take note, with objects, people, and events. Here they are now constructing that personal meaning through what they've experienced in the awareness stage. Inquiry is the comparing of their own thinking with that of other people. They examine, they investigate, and then they generalize their experience. Then lastly, the last stage of this learning cycle is the utilization, where they represent their learning in various ways by applying learning to new situations. Here they are now representing their learning experiences in more different ways. Okay, under learning cycle, I want us also to look at the stages in more detail as to what you as a teacher can do to facilitate mathematical learning at each stage of the 4 processes. Under awareness, a teacher should create the environment for the learners, provide opportunities by introducing new objects or new events, new people, invite interest by posing problems or questions. Be able to pose those problems and questions so that you can create the environment or now introduce the new objects. Be able to respond to child's interest of shared experiences, show interest and enthusiasm. That is now what you as a teacher can do to facilitate awareness as a learning cycle stage. Exploration. What you as a teacher can do is to facilitate, support, provide opportunities for active exploration, extend play, describe child's ability, respond, respect child's thinking and rule system, very important, and allow for constructive error. And under inquiry, that is our 3rd stage of the 4 processes. A teacher should help children refine understanding, be able to guide, assist, and help. Guide children and focus attention. Ask more focused questions and help children make connections. Remember here they are now investigating and examining, so you must at least help them so they can make connections, so that they can relate these connections to their prior learning. Okay, we have utilization as the last stage, where a teacher should be able to create vehicles for application in real world. They need to apply now. They are prior learning to the now real world. Help children apply learning in new situations. Provide meaningful situations in which to use learning. Those new situations, they should be able, at least, be able to provide them with meaningful situations that they need to use. Okay. Under Unit 1, we have mathematical learning difficulties as well. I would like you to go through the approaches to teaching and learning as well, where we have the two approaches to teaching and learning, the telling approach and the justification approach. Please do know the difference very well. Be able to apply examples, practical examples to each approach. Telling approach, which is known as a traditional, is more of the rote learning, whereby you assume that learners learn best when they are given facts and expected to memorize the facts and drill on the facts. This approach is more of a one size fits all, where you expect what one learner understand, or what one learner should knows or knows. And this type of approach, it's not more on the understanding side of the concept to the learner. You only assume. You give the facts. You don't test their knowledge. You just feed them with what you think is best for them, but without testing their knowledge, especially their prior knowledge. That is now the telling or the traditional approach. Then we have the justification approach, which is more the constructivist approach. Children are encouraged to understand what they are learning in this type of approach. You encourage them so that they understand what they should learn. Talk of multiplication. You want them to understand the certain stages, the certain steps, how they should do it. This one is based on constructivist theory of learning and teaching. The theorists propose that children are not empty vessels, but rather active participants in the knowledge-forming process. This one is more of a rational type of learning. Okay. Then we have the mathematical learning difficulties as well that I want you to focus on, where we have the physiological learning difficulties, which might be caused by physical ailment or damage, such as brain damage. Examples of this are the color blind, where a child may be asked to color in a certain portion of a fraction, but because this child has this physiological learning difficulty, won't be able to, as this child is color blind, or to read off from a certain color, but unfortunately this child won't be able to because this child is color blind, which is caused by a physiological condition. We have a psychological condition as well, or learning difficulties, which is caused by now psychological blockage. This is the behavioral or the cognitive problems, such as maybe negative attitude towards the subject, towards mathematics. So this child is not giving the best in mathematics because of the attitude or the anxiety, the fear of the subject. Okay, so the mathematical learning difficulties, we have 4 types: the memory problems, procedural problems, visual spatial problems, problem-solving difficulties. Study or know the examples, the types, the causes, and how you as a teacher can help a child to overcome these problems. We have the useful strategies that one can apply when you are helping a child to overcome such learning difficulties. Maybe let me mention 1 or 2 for each. Memory problems. You base teaching on understanding of concepts so learners may be able to remember. Yes, you know what memory problems are: difficulty in remembering facts, names and numbers. Practice regularly for the memory problem. And then for procedural problem, introduce the concepts using variety of methods. Different methods when you're introducing a topic, use different methods. And then the visual spatial problem. Here you use finger space between the sums. As you know, this type of learners have problems now aligning with alignment, writing numbers in correct lines. Then the problem solving difficulties, make sure the language is clear and you use familiar context to these learners so that they may be able to solve problems or word problems better. Okay, that is all for Unit 1. Go more in detail. From your study guides, everything is very, very clear. I'm just highlighting a few things that I would like you to focus on. Unit 2. Under Unit 2, I would like to discuss the concepts, how concepts are acquired. Let's start there. Read through the planning and mathematics lesson to ensure learning support, but let's go through how concepts are acquired. We have 3 types of learning experiences: the naturalistic learning experience, the informal learning experience, and the adult guided learning experience. I want you to know the difference between the two. This learning experience is the way a child learns something. How do learners learn things in a naturalistic learning experience environment, in an informal learning experience environment, and in an adult guided learning experience environment? I want you to know the 3 very well. Then we jump to questioning and answering in a mathematics lesson. The materials for teaching mathematics go through as well. But let's look at questioning and answering in a mathematics lesson. Understanding learners' responses to questions. We have rote answers to questions and rational answers to questions. Know the difference. Where rote, it involves retrieving facts from memory and then relaying these facts in answer to a question. Children learn by heart without understanding anything at all. So that is rote answers, and avoid rote answers in your classrooms. Rational answers to questions require consideration and thought, meaning children take the facts in the question and integrate them with the knowledge they have on the topic in order to come up with a rational answer. So encourage learners to learn to have more of rational answers than rote answers in your classrooms. Study more in depth the differences between the two, the examples between the two, what a rote answer can be in a mathematical classrooms and what a rational answer can be in a mathematical classroom. Let's move on to unit number 3. We have 3 learning activities here, introducing the cardinal numbers 1 up to 5. I want you to know what cardinal numbers are, what ordinal numbers are, the differences between the two, and then the examples. Please take note of the examples, students. Cardinal numbers, they specify the size of a set. 1, 2, 3, it means there are 3 classrooms. Whereas ordinal numbers, they specify the position of an object in a set. Like I have 5 books and I'm counting them. These are now the 2 ways of describing quantities, so I'm counting them. First, second, third. The 3rd book, maybe there's something on the 3rd book. It does not necessarily mean that there are 3 books. No, that's just the position of the 3rd book. I want you to take note. The differences between the two. And the last number is the number of objects in the set. Now when it comes to cardinal numbers, if I count up to 5, it means there are only 5 numbers. But whereas for ordinal numbers, if I count 3 objects, it does not necessarily mean that there are 3 objects. I only stopped on the 3rd object. Take note of that, because most of you have problems with the difference between the two. You know what each is, you know how to define it, you know, but 1, 2, 3 and first, second, third are not differences. The difference should be that the last number is the number of objects in the set for cardinal numbers. And for ordinal numbers, the selected object may not be the last in a set of those ordinal numbers. Developing logic and classifying skills. We have the properties for classification and grouping objects. The color, the shape, the size, the material, the list is long. It's in your study guides. Study them. Know what each means, how to classify each of those properties or how to group them, and example. Be able to apply examples to everything, students. Do not memorize. When you talk of shape, be able to give examples of how you classify something according to its shape. Okay, we move on to introducing part-whole relationships. Activities for introducing part-whole relationships. We have 3 activities: the parts of wholes, the division of groups into parts, the division of whole things into parts. I want you to know all 3 very, very well. Then unit 4, understanding money, working with time. Focus on those 2 concepts. We have money-based activities, very useful activities for teaching monetary concepts. I want you to know those 3, how you can apply them in a classroom. How will you introduce comparing prices to pre-primary learners or to primary learners? How you introduce wages and salaries, currencies, budgets. You must know those monetary concepts and how you can apply them as a teacher in your classroom, activity-wise. Then working with time. Attributes of time. We have 2 attributes of time, sequence and duration. Know that a sequence is the order of events and is related to the process of ordering. And then duration relates to how long an event takes, how long an event takes place. Don't mix up the 2, please. You have been doing that in your assignments. Refrain, understand, study with understanding. Okay, we move on to unit 5. It talks about using graphs to represent data. It's one of the learning activity. How do you use graphs, or why is describing data using graphs so effective in our classrooms? We have 4 reasons there. Visual means of comparing 2 or more items in a clear way. It's a means of visual. Explain things better by seeing how things are represented on a graph. A lot of information can be condensed into one graph. Statistics consist of so much information, but just by putting it in one graph, you have condensed it a lot in just one simple graph. Trends can be identified quickly and easily. You can see the pattern, the trend. Which one is more, which one is less, or which one grows faster, grows. You understand? The trend can be identified more easily and quickly. Number 4, improves communication skills when describing findings. Here you are improving now the communication skills because you are communicating. You are thinking and you are reading, looking at the graph, communicating just by describing those findings on the graph. Okay, we move on to introducing decimal system, where we have the benefits of using decimal system over fractions. Go through that. Conceptual difficulties with decimals. I want you to understand the difference between the 2, because although you can list them, I realize that most students do not know the differences between the 2, how to understand them. If you are asked to give a practical example, you are failing. Misunderstanding the decimal point is one of the difficulties with decimal. And transferring whole number properties to decimals is another. Please study thoroughly. It is very, very clear in your study guide. The examples are even very, very good. The decimal point, how does it mislead? How can you as a teacher be able to overcome this misunderstanding? Then we move on to learning about angles. Common problems learners have when working with angles. What are those problems? We have common problems learners always experience. Those are the line segments, because learners think that the longer the arm, the bigger the angle. How can you as a teacher improve on this problem, make it more clear to the learners by drawing an arc to represent the angle size. Okay, different orientations are seen as different angles. As soon as you turn the angle in a different position, then the learner thinks it's a different angle. How can you as a teacher overcome this? How can you as a teacher make it more clear to the learners that you can demonstrate that the same angle can be orientated differently without changing the angle size? Try to demonstrate that. That is the one way of overcoming that difficulty. Incorrect placing of the protractor. When the center of the protractor is not on the vertex, you can expect wrong angle readings. So try to explain that more clear. If you're asked to describe these problems, talk about that. Incorrect reading of the protractor. If you don't start with multiples of 10 and then 5 and so on, you will experience problems. As a teacher, try to focus on this first by how can you avoid learners reading the protractor incorrect. Okay, those are just some of the examples of the ways that you as a teacher can be able to elaborate to the learners or demonstrate to the learners to avoid such problems. Let's move on. Unit 6. We have 2 learning outcomes of Unit 6, but the second one, which is about useful websites for mathematical teaching areas, that's for interest sake for you when you are looking for certain activities. Most questions will come by apply or what activity can you give to learners to introduce a certain topic. So there's a long list of websites in Unit 6. Those websites can help you a lot with what type of activities to give for which topics. Then let's discuss the first learning activity, the parents and families support for mathematical learning. Parents and families, how can you involve them to support mathematical learning? There are different ways of communication that can assist or that can ease mathematical problems in our classrooms when we involve parents and families. Newsletters, informal notes, homework diaries, personal letters or emails, phone calls, face-to-face meetings. All those are ways of communication that you can apply with parents and families regarding your support in your classroom, mathematical wise. Those are just list of the ways. I want you to study them, see how you can approach each of those communication ways or how you can apply it with the parents. We move on to Unit 7. It's the last unit, was the last learning outcome. We have 3 that I would like us to look at here. Types of assessments. We all know this type of assessment very well. You have proven yourself, except one aspect. The examples. You mix them up. Are we memorizing? Do we have memory problems as well? Formative assessment and summative assessment. Formative assessment takes place throughout the year, during class tests, during assignments, orals. It's formative assessment. Summative assessment, end of the year, end of a term examination. It's more formal. The exam that you give end of the year or end of each term is a summative assessment. The examples will be for formative classwork, homework. It's an example. While for summative, examinations, whether you say end of year or end of term examination, is an example of a summative assessment. But I don't know why you always mix up the two when it comes to giving examples. Okay, we look at homework as effective learning support. Know the importance of homework. There are guidelines for managing homework. Study all that. Just know why is homework an effective learning support. Try to understand. It is very, very clear. I will not go in detail, as it's very much explained well in our study guides. Then we look at setting mathematics tests. How do you set up a mathematics test? There are guidelines to be followed, which are: the level should be appropriate, question type should be familiar, language should be very clear. Check your test and the memorandum, the correlation between the two. Mistakes can happen. Go thoroughly. Progress to more challenging questions. Very important, that one. Mark allocation should be clear and must reflect time allocation, whereby if you are giving a test out of 30, make sure your time is well allocated for 30 mark questions. Okay, students, that brings us to the end of our units. For any inquiries or assistance, you may contact me on 081 3041 340. Anytime between 6 and 8, weekdays. Weekends, anytime between 10 and 5. Sundays, no please. I'm more than willing to assist you with whatever question you may experience or problem you may, or any topic that you do not understand at all. Contact me. I'm more than willing to assist you telephonically. Okay, this presentation should be seen as a guideline only. Do not limit your chances of excelling in this module by studying the above points only. Gather as much information as possible. I wish you all the best for your examination. Please prepare well enough, and make sure you focus, most importantly, on the unit or the learning outcomes of all the 7 units explained.